23rd. It is 2:04 p.m. in the afternoon. And this afternoon, I am reaching out to you to share an experience, a brief one. I'd also like to talk about an experience that I had yesterday that was, at the time, very, very confusing to me. After speaking to my mom, I think I worked things out a bit better, but I will talk about that experience after I talk about this very interesting experience in what I perceived to be a sort of maybe cemetery from the 1700s, maybe? From the colonial days, I guess. And I wanted to make sure I emphasize for you to keep in mind that these things are translations, and I've talked about translations before. So as I talk about this experience, and when I talk about other future experiences, I want you to keep in mind that my mind is constantly doing translations in order for me to make sense of the things that I am seeing, especially things that may be far beyond my comprehension. So this morning, sometime in the middle of the night or early morning, whatever or however you would like to see it, I was lying down. No storm sounds, by the way, guys. It's been raining, started sprinkling a little bit here in Southern California. I know we are getting ready to get a major storm here, so it's already started sprinkling. It looks like it's probably going to start raining harder on Sunday evening, so we're dealing with that. But when the weather is like that, I don't really have a need to listen to storm sounds and things like that, because I can hear sort of the natural sounds outside. I just open my patio and I'm good to go. So that's basically what I did. I laid down, eyes shut, relaxed on my side, and I came to that middle place probably within about 20 to 25 minutes. For those of you who are listening who are also working on astral projection and working to get there, the one thing I want to emphasize to you, I don't want it to make it seem as if it's easy, because it isn't easy. Okay, so I know that there are those of you who listen to this that are struggling with astral projection, and right now I'm speaking to you. Okay, I've been doing this for over 40 years, since the late 70s. Okay, so this has been an evolution. I didn't start doing this yesterday. I've had many, many, many experiences. So yes, these things come to me now. They don't always come to me. There are days when they don't, and I've spoken to you about that as well. It is frustrating. I understand the frustration. I get frustrated too, just like you might get frustrated. But you do have to, in order to be able to really experience astral projection, one of the most important things is to relax. So for those of you who are listening to this, who are working on astral projection, this is so important. And it is important to know that I've been doing this for a very long time, which is why things do come to me at this point. So I went into my middle space, my sweet spot. What I like to call it a sweet spot, because it's right in the middle of being between being asleep and awake. And once I got to that point, interestingly enough, it was a little weird, a little clunky. I'm going to say the word clunky in the sense of, sometimes my transitions, by the way, this is a beyond body. And again, real quick, for those of you who don't follow this channel and aren't listening to my beyond body videos, the beyond body is different than astral projection, in the sense that I don't feel separation when I'm out there and I'm having an experience. It does literally feel as if my entire body is moving in some direction or going somewhere, even though it is a perception and my body is actually in bed. So, and obviously in astral projection, I feel a separation, or I feel separate from my body. With the beyond body, I do not feel separate from my body. So that is the difference. I was rolling off of my bed, as I sometimes do. I've talked about the different directions I go in. Sometimes my legs will rise up into the air and I'll start going up, just climbing really fast, really, really fast. Sometimes I will turn left, turn right, different turns. I'll go up, I'll go down, different things. This time I rolled off my bed. I did have that sense, as I sometimes tell you, that I'm going to hit my head on something, even though I never do. I never end up hitting my head on anything or landing on the floor. But I did feel myself going off of the bed. And interesting also, when I was going off the bed this time, I had the perception of either mist or clouds. One of the two. As I came down, it was a weird thing. Trying to really try to explain it to you, it was like I could sense it and somehow see it, but at the same time I wasn't seeing it, which I know doesn't make any sense at all. But that was my perception, either mist or clouds in the very beginning as I was coming down off of my bed. Now, once I got off my bed, I stood up. And I was in, well, the only way I can explain it to you was it did seem to me, to my perception, to be a cemetery of some sort. But I thought of a cemetery back in the colonial days, 1700s. That was what my perception was. I think I may have even seen a statue that reminded me of that at this point. You might want to look up, actually, Colonial Cemetery, Savannah, Georgia, to get more of a picture of what I may have seen or something that I may have seen. I believe that was sort of the architecture, that arch that you see with what looks like a bird above it, like an eagle or something. That is the architecture or the perception of the architecture. Actually, though, it's interesting because the architecture in this cemetery was absolutely amazing. There was also a mist that was there as well, and it was dead silent. And when I say to you that it was dead silent, there was not one sound. It was creepy. I was looking around going, okay, this is interesting. So I started walking around this place, and there was, I think, I was standing in front of a statue. Again, I don't remember the details of the statue. I do remember that there was a metal plaque that was on the base of the statue, and it was sort of nickel, but it was metal. And what I did, it's interesting. Sometimes what I do when I'm in the beyond body, I'm always constantly trying to experiment to prove to myself that this is actually real, even though I've done this so many times. So I reached out and I touched the plaque, and it was metal. It wasn't cold, actually, but I could feel it. I could feel it was a solid object, guys. And there was a number on that plaque that I perceived to be maybe a date that whoever was underneath this statue, maybe it was someone was buried there, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe it was the date that they died. It wouldn't make any sense, though, because what the number that I'm going to tell you, that's not a date. But this is the number that I saw that I brought back for you. It's 59304. And I remember when I saw the number 59304, not only did I trace that number that was imprinted into this metal plaque with my hand, and I could feel the impression of that number. Not only that, I kept repeating it over and over again because I did not want to forget that number, 59304. Don't know what it means, but that's the number I kept repeating. At that point, after feeling this plaque, I heard a sound. It was a rustling. And oh my God, I think I was like, what in, because again, you have to imagine, guys, this place was dead. I mean, beyond silent. I might even say deafeningly silent. It was so silent. It was, like I said, very creepy. And when I heard the rustling sound, I was like, what in the blankety blank is that? I don't cuss on this channel, of course, because I know that there are younger people who do listen to this. So, but anyways, I immediately looked up into the air. Now, for those of you who have listened to previous Beyond Body videos, you know that there are times when I go to these different realities where I can fly and times where I cannot. And as soon as I heard this sound, I looked up into the air and I thought to myself, I hope I can fly because I don't know what that was that I heard. I jumped off of the ground and I immediately went into the air. Now, guys, I have flown in the Beyond Body in these realities before that I perceive to be almost physical realities. But I'm going to tell you something. There was something different about this. I was somehow leaner when I jumped up. I was lighter when I jumped up into the air. I flew up so fast. It was amazing. I felt like I could have just taken off from there and gone anywhere. It was really cool. And again, for me, it was really cool because in the Beyond Body, I don't normally feel that lightness that I felt with this. And there was definitely a lightness there, a leanness that I felt. So I hovered, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100, between 50 and 100 feet in the air, and just looking down to see if I could perceive what that was. Then the thought in my mind was, maybe this, whatever it was that I heard, could fly as well. So I decided to cut this experience short and said, okay, I want to be back. And I was back. Very interesting experience, guys. And to very briefly talk about the experience that I had on Friday, this was in an apartment, and I remembered so little of this experience that I just didn't feel comfortable sharing it with you. I like to remember a certain amount before I put it out there for you, because I know that there are those of you who listen that are curious about these places that I visit. So I was in some sort of apartment. I perceived these two young ladies. One was African American and young. The thing that I remember about it was, I remember she was in the hallway. She was coming toward me. And unlike those of you who listened to the animation studio experience that I had, where I was in an animation studio and there was a lady that was approaching me, and I started freaking out because she wouldn't tell me who she was. Well, this time I decided I was going to be cool about it, and I extended my hand, and this lady walked toward me, and at some point she took my hand, and when she took my hand, she transformed into someone else. It was so interesting. It was instantaneous. She went from a younger African American woman to an older white woman with short hair, grayish hair. And she held onto my hand, and she took my hand and she put it over her chest. And we just stood there with each other like this. Now, when I discussed this experience with my mom felt that it was a sort of a tune-up. Maybe it was healing of some kind. Sometimes I go for these types of experiences. They're not to, I think, any sort of necessarily, or not necessarily a reality or a parallel universe, but a place that was perhaps constructed for by myself or by the other being, to be able to connect with that being and to do whatever spiritual work that needs to be done. And I guess there was some work that needed to be done, and it was. So yeah, that was the experience on Friday. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. And until next time, take care.